Joining us now, Trump campaign senior communications advisor, Jason Miller. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. And before you get going, Wolf, I got to tell you, that piece from Jim Acosta was one of the most heavily edited, most dishonest intro packages I've probably ever had set up. And so I'm sorry. Normally, I wouldn't start off an interview like this, but everything from Kellyanne's words to the description of what's going on in the race was just nonsense. So
well, your colleague Kellyanne Conway, the campaign manager, she's a pollster. She did say over the weekend on Meet the Press, she said that that Donald Trump is behind in the race. What was inaccurate about that?
Well, Wolf, if you listen to all of her comments, she was saying that we were behind on spending. And that's very clearly, look, we're doing fantastic. We're ahead in the Rasmussen poll. The IBD poll shows that this race is dead even. And even in the CNN poll that came out an hour or so ago, number one, it's the same margin that it was the last time that CNN ORC had a national survey. But second, and here's one of the things I think is important for folks at home. Hold on, Wolf, just one second. One thing is, if you look at the gender gap between men and women with Mr. Trump and Secretary Clinton, it's the exact same place that it was for Obama and Mitt Romney. When you look at the men, it's not believable, Wolf, to think that Mr. Trump is only ahead by 3 points with men. That is just, or to think that she is ahead with terrorism
let me just
or
point
immigration
out,
or Supreme Court. That's just, that's not realistic.
Jim Acosta did not take her out of context. We're not taking her out of context. Even Trump today said in a local interview, he said and I'm quoting him now, he said he's somewhat behind. He says he's also winning, but he says he's somewhat behind. We're not taking that out of context either.
So let me tell you where he's behind, Wolf. Let me tell you where he's behind. Where he's behind is in Pennsylvania, slightly. He's behind slightly in Michigan. There are these blue states that Mr. Trump is putting into play where we get zero credit for doing so. And let me tell you where we're leading. We're leading in places like Iowa, which has been blue the last couple of cycles. Leading in Ohio. It's probably a tied race in North Carolina. We might be slightly ahead there. In Florida, I believe we're within the margin in that state. And actually, we're ahead on absentees at the moment. And so we feel like we're winning this race. And Mr. Trump said that in his very last rally that he was in. And so that's the real reflection of where we are as a campaign.
Based on all the scientific polls that CNN and other major news organizations use, not the other unscientific polls, this is our information, and I'll share it with you. Trump is ahead in Iowa, Ohio, and Georgia. Yes, he's ahead in those 3 states. But the last time he was ahead in the following states was a while ago based on the polls that we accept. Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia. In the polls that we accept as scientific and legitimate, right now Hillary Clinton is either slightly ahead or significantly ahead in those states.
Well, if I push back on that completely. I don't believe that CNN or any other news organization can simply play voice of God on this and decide which polls are acceptable and which ones aren't. In the primary, almost every single primary, every single poll undercounted and discounted Mr. Trump's support going in. He won with huge margins, even bigger so than before. We're seeing a lot of support in places. Again, we think we're right on the edge in Pennsylvania. You look at Michigan. In fact, don't just listen to me, Wolf. Look at where Secretary Clinton has been spending her time. She was on the trail with Senator Kaine this past weekend. Were they in a purple state or a red state? No, they were in Pennsylvania doing 2 different events, trying to gin up their base. Look where they're going this week, Iowa, another blue state where we're actually leading. So don't just listen to me. Look at where they're going as well.
We've acknowledged that Iowa is going for Trump, according to the most recent polls that we accept. We've acknowledged that right now. But you remember during the primaries, Donald Trump would always start off his speeches how well he was doing, and he was doing well against those 16 other Republican senators and governors and other Republican candidates. This is what he tweeted earlier today. I'll put it up on the screen. This is from @RealDonaldTrump. Major story that the Dems are making up phony polls in order to suppress the Trump. We are going to win. All right, so do you regard our CNN ORC poll as phony?
I'm sorry, what was that, Wolf?
Do you regard our CNN ORC poll that came out today, which shows Hillary Clinton nationally with a 5-point lead over Trump, as phony?
I think the sampling was clearly flawed. There's no way that Mr. Trump is only ahead by 3 points with male voters. There's no way that Hillary Clinton is leading with some of these other categories. The one thing that, even despite the flawed methodology and the flawed sampling, they did get right is that Mr. Trump is leading with voters who are concerned most about the economy, and they believe that Mr. Trump, with his business background, is the right candidate to do that.
It's been a real pleasure so
no.
far.
We'll see you on Monday.
We want your analysis, Sam.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
latest national poll puts Hillary Clinton ahead. The Pew Research Center finds Clinton at 46% with registered voters, Donald Trump at 40%, Gary Johnson with 6%, and Jill Stein at 3%. And Donald Trump's going to return to Arizona for a 7th time this weekend, which, according to the Arizona Republic, is a record for a GOP nominee in a state that has voted for the Republican in all but one election since 1952. This as both candidates head to Iowa tonight. Trump in Cedar Rapids, Clinton in Des Moines. It's a state where Trump has been leading. But a new Quinnipiac University poll shows Clinton jumping 7 points since last month into a tie, 44 to 44. Gary Johnson dropping 6 points to 4%. A new Q poll in Georgia also shows a 6-point swing in Clinton's direction. Trump barely ahead, 44% to her 43%, Johnson at 8%. And in North Carolina, Quinnipiac's poll has Clinton leading by 4 points, 47% to Trump's 43%. According to the latest early voting analysis, over 13.7 million people have already voted nationwide, more than half of which have been cast in 12 battleground states. And the new Q poll gives Clinton the edge with early voters ahead of Trump by 6 points in Georgia, 34 points in Iowa, 28 points in North Carolina.
John Heilman, state of the race, well, let's just talk about at the end of the week. We've had some polls that have shown 13 points at 12.
Jumping around a little bit, but
There's been a Fox News poll that has it at 3. Actually, the Pew poll feels about right at 6. But these 3 battleground states that have come out, not any good news in there for Donald Trump.
Not any good news anywhere for Donald Trump, I would say. You know, I think the race was basically over at the beginning of the week, and it's more closer to over now just because you're passing each day. And, you know, I don't really love the statistical, what the percentage is.
92.684%.
I'm a little skeptical about that, but it seems like about that. I mean, one does not want to declare the race to be completely over.
You just can't.
But
Yeah.
it's, she's pretty solidly at a 6 or 7. I think if you look at nationally, she's at about 6 or 7 lead, and the battleground states which are a little tighter in places we're seeing all over the place here, where she's starting to pull ahead, and in places like Georgia, where it's now a statistical dead heat, which is, if we wake up on election day and she's won Georgia, she'll be at close to 400 electoral votes.
Yeah. Willie, there are a lot of the swing states are tight, but when the swing states are North Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia,
which are not really swing states.
which are not usually swing states. That's what I'm saying. When they are those states, you've got a Republican that is really campaigned back on their heels.
Yeah, those states are non-negotiable for Donald Trump to win. Those are not supposed to be swing states. Georgia, you can throw Iowa in there, which is tight now as well.
Right.
Texas was never, I don't think, ever going to really go Democratic this time, but the fact that that's close should be a warning sign as well. So I think that Pew poll that shows it at 6 points nationally captures the average
feels
of
about
probably
right.
where the race is.
Yeah.
But Trump has to lock down those 3 states that we just talked about, Georgia, Arizona, Iowa, and then win the honest-to-goodness swing states, which he's not winning those either. If you look at North Carolina, obviously Virginia, he's down double digits now. Colorado, Pennsylvania, you can go all over the map.
Donnie, when it's 3 weeks out, that's one thing. And I said when it's 3, you don't say it's over when it's 3 weeks. When it's 2 weeks, it's still not over. I think now we're, 10 days out maybe? 10 days out. He's going to have to pick up, 5 points nationally in 10 days to get those swing states going his way. Or a lot of people are going to have to be lying to pollsters, which just doesn't happen to that degree. So I'm with John. I just don't say anything's ever over, ever. But at the end of this week, there were some polls out midweek that were pretty good for him in swing states.
Yeah.
These are not.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about the polls that we're going to have to understand that somebody's wrong within the margin of error. If we've got 12-point swings between 3 and 12, then we're going to have new rules about polls and what the margin of error is.
Well, it's just like Gallup.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what happened in the 2012 race, Gallup had Romney up.
I will say it's interesting. These polls today are a little bit of a difference in the last day or two, because even to your point of the last couple of days, you start to see a little tightening. And I'm curious, though, the last 2 days for Trump have been the best 2 days, or the last 2 or 3 days on this campaign, in that basically he's been somewhat invisible. We had the Obama premiums going up 25%. We've had a next level of WikiLeaks, probably the most severe ones yet. And I'm would not be surprised if another day or two we don't see these polls tighten by a point or two back
Yeah.
the other direction. Having said that, though,
There is, and by the
a
way,
natural elasticity that happens.
People are figuring, oh, he's going to be at 37%.
Yeah. No,
They're
no.
saying that. No, there's always this tightening. America is a 50-50 nation usually. So now,
and if you've watched the polls, when he goes a few days without
talking,
dropping all over himself, it kind of comes back like that. But as you guys talked all during yesterday, at the end of the day, going back to the battle states, that even if you do the Hail Mary in every state, he's at 265, and there's no path without New Hampshire, and that's not happening. So, yes, and I said this the day that Billy Bush came thing. I think the election ended that day, but there is no good news for this gentleman.
Let's be clear. There's not any tightening in these polls.
No, I'm saying in the next 2 days. What I'm saying, John,
just let me finish. In Iowa, for instance, Iowa's been of all the traditional battleground states, it's been the state where Trump has done best.
Right.
Iowa and Ohio have been the two states where he's been in the best place. That 7-point jump for her in Iowa, if that Q poll is correct, is indicative of not tightening.
From last month to this month.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. From last month to this month. That's not a trend towards tightening. That's a trend towards her accelerating her broader lead in the race.
Right. I mean, you could look midweek. There were some Monmouth polls out. There were some other polls out. There was the Fox poll out. I saw CNN all night talking about a tightening race. Again, I think I love the people that say